Okay, yes, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back after lunch. I hope you all had an enjoyable lunch. So this afternoon's session is entitled Working with the EASA. And so we've asked for four stakeholders from industry to present on this and give us their feedback. So I'd like to take the opportunity to invite to the stage Ludovic Donadieu from Airbus Helicopters, Mr. Stefan Bossou from Airbus, Mr. Bragi Baldursson from Aptos, and Mr. Rob van der Bosch from Lufthansa Technik. Thank you and welcome.
Okay, great. Hello. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a new exercise for me to participate to such a conference in front of you, and I'm honored. My name is Ludovic Donadieu, and I'm working for Airbus Helicopters, for the corporate security of Airbus Helicopters, and mostly in charge of the project Part IS. So, to start this presentation, we have a small video that we prepare in Airbus to promote Part IS and ISMS with EASA. So please, if you can launch the video, it takes 3 minutes.
We live in a more and more digitized and interconnected environment. A cybersecurity attack in one organization, product, information, or communication systems can impact the safe functioning of civil aviation operations. In this context, and in order to contribute to the implementation of the European Strategy for Cybersecurity in Aviation, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, has set a new organizational rule applicable to all civil aviation stakeholders. This new regulation, called Part IS, requests the implementation of an Information Security Management System, ISMS, encompassing the whole civil aviation ecosystem. This rule addresses the need to prevent and respond to cybersecurity incidents that may affect safety of flight in a comprehensive, standardized, and coordinated manner among all actors, and requires compliance by 2025. How to comply with the rule? By establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continuously improving its civil aviation information security management system in relation to products and services, Airbus will contribute, along with all other stakeholders, to a global and harmonized management of cybersecurity in civil aviation. This management system will, amongst other things, identify, protect, detect, respond to, and recover from any information security incident that has a potential impact on safety of flight and will therefore contribute to the existing Airbus Safety First priority. To this end, it will interface with our Safety Management System, SMS, as well as with our Corporate Security Management System. Who is concerned? From design to production, support to training, and operations, including all the elements geared towards the operations of civil aviation activities. Airbus will ensure that security concerns are addressed on all elements exposed to cyber threats and related to flight safety issues. In this way, we must ensure compliance with rules and regulations and maintain our privileges as an approved organization. Thanks to the leading expertise of each of our divisions and under a united work, Airbus is currently developing a harmonized compliance approach toward EASA Part IS. Be part of it. Be part of a secure, safe, and united world.
Thank you. Can switch back on the, okay. So we have 2 lines of work with the authority, with EASA. And the first one was the participation on the rulemaking. So, as we discussed this morning, the RMT 220, from when the NPA 2019-07 came from with the Part IS, which is a new implementing rule set by EASA in 2019 to address the safety impact of cybersecurity risk. So we participate to the elaboration of this regulation with comments. And the delegated rule, the first part, was published last September, the 16th, sorry. So now we know the applicability for the Part IS, which is October 16th, 2025, which is a 3 years transition period plus 20 days. Okay, so, sorry. Associated to this regulation, of course, the applicable means of compliance and the guidance material. So a year ago, at the request of EASA, we start working for the development of this AMCGM with the authority, for the authority and for the organizations. So EASA set 4 subgroups to work on these topics with a regular meeting and a monthly plenary session. 4 subgroups. We dispatch all the chapters of the regulation for each subgroups. And how we work, when one subgroup considers that he's mature enough on what he's writing, he put it on offer, and we discuss on it with all stakeholders during the plenary session, and pass completed when everybody is okay and no more comments. The target for us, of course, is to provide a final draft by end of December 2022 for official publication, summer 2023. This is our target, and hopefully we can reach it. Before I will talk to the third axis of work with EASA, which is the pilot case, the ISMS pilot case, I just want to give you a short overview of our activities on Airbus helicopters for the Part IS. So, of course, the regulation published last September, transition period. We know the applicability date now. We are working on the MCGM, hopefully published summer 2023. On our side, because we knew early that Part IS will be something very impacting for our organization, and because we are talking about ISMS, and the first input we need when we want to build an ISMS is the security risk assessment. So we launched security risk assessment in Airbus helicopters more than 1.5 years ago, on all approved organizations, on all core countries, I mean France, Spain, and Germany. All these security risk assessments will be done by end of April 2023. We already finished the assessment for the DOA. So when EASA came with the idea of the pilot case, of course, we was volunteer in Airbus helicopters because it seems to us that we are ready to start to get a functional model end of 2023 for global deployment, core countries, and to be compliant to the new regulation by October 16, 2025. And of course, we have different materials for awareness and promotion, the video, you see the video before, but also we have a Google site, will be online next week, and we prepare some e-learning also for population in Airbus helicopters for worldwide deployments. The pilot case. Beginning of 2022, EASA we have a kickoff to start a pilot case for SMS, ISMS pilot case on DOA holder. That was the name. Airbus helicopter was selected for the ISMS part, our colleague from Leonardo for the SMS, and for aircraft, Airbus are on the pilot case for both of them. So, because we start earlier our security risk assessment, Airbus helicopter said, okay, we are ready to start the pilot case. So in June 2022, we start with a kickoff with EASA experts. I don't know if I can name the people. There is Ciro Piron and Oscar Ferreira, who are experts on DOA, and Mr. Davide Martielli, cybersecurity expert for EASA. They are the dedicated team to work with us. And in Airbus Helicopter, we are 5 persons now, fully dedicated to the project. So, as I said, our target is to get a functional solution compliant to Part ES end of 2023. It's an estimation, of course. It's our vision, considering our environment, our ecosystem, our resources, and our ambition. So be careful how we work. Okay, there's different chapters on the Part IS. So we start with what we call ISMS core, of course, the security risk assessment, the risk treatment, the security incident. Then will be the improvement, the record and report, and all the manual associates. The way of work with EASA, we had a monthly meeting, remote and face-to-face when it's possible. After the monthly meeting, we send to the authority within 10 days a minute of meeting, taking in consideration all the comments. And the EASA, the authority, has to validate this minute of meeting before the next meeting the month after. So we plan to finish December 2023. Again, it's just an estimation. So we already have 3 sessions. The next one will be in January. Everything to talk about capitalization working with EASA. So for EASA, all this participation with Airbus Helicopters will give an early feedback on the rule and the MCGM implementation. With a structure and local workforce for organization to implement Part ES, following the MCGM that we will produce. Of course, it's not published yet. So we start in Airbus Helicopters on the ISO 27001 based, and each time we are more mature on the MCGM. We change a little bit, but we are very close to the target. And to verify also for the EASA that MCGM are well understanding and the expectation compliance associated also. For us, of course, to make sure a comprehensive application of this MCGM, and also to ensure a risk reduction of late non-compliance for functional solution. With flexibility. Why? Because the MC are not ready yet. We start the pilot case, so of course we may have to modify some result at the end. Part IS linked to SMS. Why? Because for us, Part IS is an added value for the safety. We are talking about security for safety. And I think it's a good transition for my friend Stefan to talk to you about the safety management system. Thank you.
C'est bon. So, thanks Ludovic for a nice transition. Now we speak about SMS, Safety Management System. So here it's indicated I'm the head of airworthiness operation. I'm pertaining to the Office of Airworthiness in Airbus, and I'm in charge of all the transverse activity of the Office of Airworthiness, process, method, tool, regulation, standardization, training, monitoring, all the elements, all the supporting elements. But here today, this afternoon, I'm speak as the SMS officer for engineering and DOA. So, safety management system. So the content of the presentation, we start a recap where we are in terms of SMS regulation and then the associated standard. One big element, we'll see later why we are using this step, this famous standard SM001. I think there is 1 0 missing, sorry. It's a famous standard recognition with regard to the EASA. It was mentioned by Alain this morning about recognition of industry standard by the authority. Then the section leading with the SMS pilot project, where SMS and ISMS was working together. We created a kind of industry facilitation group because although it's written ISD, but we go beyond the ISD member. We do have an overview of the membership, the term of reference, and also to share with you the first outcome. And the challenge we face, we discover during this initial phase of the pilot project, and some recommendation for the future. And to conclude with a very high overview of SMS implementation within Airbus, and to keep you awake, we'll have also a video. So the SMS regulation, where we are. So the SMS regulation, as it was mentioned this morning, the SMS in Part 21 is really one of the last systems for which we have an implementation of the regulation. So SMS in Part, previously we have, just before the Part 21, we have SMS in Part 145, which became effective last week. Now we are in SMS in Part 21. And today, we are still in the so-called transition period. So the rule will be applicable on the 7th of March, 2023, and we'll have 2 years, so-called flexibility period, during which, yes, the rule is applicable, but we could have finding, and the finding for resolution can be extended to the 7th of March, 2025, which 2025 being for the ISMS, if I make a mirror with the ISMS, it's the opposite. On the ISMS, there is no such flexibility period. The rule is become applicable soon, and then you will have the transition period, greater transition period. So it's different approach, different meaning. And then, what is the element, what is a big gap today, is the famous AMC guidance material of the SMS within for the SMS for Part 1, for Part 21. And one part 145. Yes, and the date is still TBD. It was not known. We saw this morning that there is a little Part 1. It was written in small in the slide. So I don't know what we will have in this small part of a small Part 1, but here it's you will see it's an issue, it's a concern. So this was on the regulation side, but on the standard side, there was some also activity on the industry side. So we start in 2016 to have a US standard with EASA. But on an international model, we a group of five industry associations, the ASD, the AIA, the AIA Brazil, AIA Canada, and GAMA, work together to deliver this industry standard to be recognized method, recognized guidance material to support the implementation of SMS in DOE and other approved organizations. So today, an initial version was published in 2018. Yes, and the latest version was published end of March. You saw it on the screen this morning also. And this latest version of issue B was meant to be the acceptable standard as the acceptable means, unacceptable means, so sorry, not the, but unacceptable means of compliance for the SMS implementation. And then the working group still work together, they resumed recently, to start on an issue C, to further extend, take into account the lesson learned and improve the system. The recognition, because here the industry standard, it's, we are not publishing standard just for the fun of a standard, we need to have a value, and this standard is really a means considered as an acceptable means of compliance to demonstrate the implementation of the safety management in design and production organization. And here you have an advanced view of what should be, it's the latest version of the proposed AMC, about 21F239C, about design management system, which to be published, and for the safety management element, a clear recognition to issue B of a standard will be quoted in the text. So therefore, this means that you will have a choice. Either you comply to the AMC and the detail, or you use the SM001 standard. So it's really an alternative means of compliance. So this is the status where we are in terms of regulation and standard. Now if you go to on the SD side, on the ISMS and ASMS pilot project, it has started. We have a formal kickoff meeting in April, launched with all the participants selected for a pilot project. And following this kickoff, it was decided maybe to group, to have, I will say, a facilitation group at industry level to allow between industry to share the feedback, to share the experience about this advanced implementation, first focusing on ISMS due to the knowledge of the regulation and the experience we have, and maybe later on to extend to see what will be the future for ISMS. But the first priority was really on ISMS. So it was a proposal we pushed to EASA, and EASA accept, yes, why not, proceed to this facilitation group to have this kind of discussion. And the idea was to further collect, have industry coordination to provide feedback to the EASA. So in terms of a member, we have all the kind of organization are present in terms of large aeroplane. In terms of helicopter, we have in bold, it's when you are selected for a pilot project. Here you see, for example, on large helicopter, as mentioned by Ludovic, SMS, it's Leonardo. But Airbus helicopter was only selected for ISMS, but as there is a link, as for the industry facilitation group, all the people, SMS and ISMS, work together because the principle, it's risk management. From high level point of view, it's the same approach, same objective. And here you have, for the business jet, you have Dassault. Was not selected for ISMS and ISMS part, but is representative, one of the representative of business jet, knowing that one of the members was also an active member in the regulation working group. Then we have on engine Rolls-Royce, General Aviation, Pilatus and Diamond, and smaller rotorcraft helicopter, empty propeller for propeller, large DOA with DO-MO interface by Lufthansa Technik, some of you colleagues, change and repair, deal and Aptos, and Bragi is there, is part also of the group. So the term of reference of the groups, it's open to ASD member, but also non-ASD member, because some of the people, organization quoted there are not an ASD member, but it was really an extension of ASD member. So therefore, what is presented there is not an ASD position, it's really an outcome of this facilitation group. And the idea was to exchange experience on SMS implementation and discussion with the corresponding EASA team leader. And the objective was also to stay connected with the ISMS pilot project because in terms of risk management, we need to look at that kind of integrated risk management, and we should not avoid to create duplicate system, but at the end to have a fully integrated system. The deliverable, but to have a kind of sanitized statistics shared with EASA, so therefore there is, again, still in the spirit of SMS, no finger pointing, no blaming, but really having a kind of outcome, looking for improvement at regular opportunity or during a project preliminary meeting. So today you didn't have any such opportunity. The first one is today at the EASA certification conference. So thanks for EASA for allowing me to make this status today. And also, one of the initial intent was to proposal for adapted rule like AMC, guidance material, flexibility, and also expectation for a small and large organization, because here it was the adaptability is one of the big challenges. We do not have the same concern. We might not be exposed to the same type of risk. Nevertheless, we have a common point. And we have to be careful. It's not because we have common point that there is a unique way to answer to the requirement. And also, one of the key aspects, which was also addressed this morning, is what could be the credit we could take from existing system in place. All of us, we have an approved organization, we have a DOA, the continued airworthiness is already part of the system. So the question, what does it mean? Is it a reinforcement of the continued airworthiness? Is it enough? If it's more, what should be done in addition to? Or is it really a revolution in the approach? And so on. And also, we have to be careful also because we have difference between OEM SMS with design and manufacturing. There is operator SMS. The risk is not the same. The objective is still the same. We need to interface, but we should not mix everything. And of course, in terms of our code of conduct, we have worked in kind of non-disclosure agreement, and by participating to the group, all members agree to this NDA. So there will be no public minute of meeting, it's just shared within the ASD facilitation group. So the first outcome of it, but the good thing, again, it's not the latest presentation because they are missing a word. 100% of industry members will use what is deployed already. So it's not a revolution per se. All the people, the intent, we have already some safety management system in place, so we have a reuse of what is intended to be used. 80% of the members have already a corporate safety management system. So again, we have a kind of already integrated safety management system. It's not safety management system linked to design, linked to production. It's already something done at corporate level. And 60% have started discussion with their DO team leader. We said started because here it's one of the outcomes, and it was also a point this morning. A lot of members push the contact. We as an industry, we push to get contact, to get feedback with the DO team leader. Here there is some latency, whereas on a pilot project we could have expected that in December, almost 6 months after the kickoff, at least 100% will have plan an initial meeting with the DO team leader. It was not the case. So here we have a delay, a latency in the start of this pilot project. For several factors, the workload, the prioritization, but also, and this is one of the regular points which come back on the table, the availability of the AMC guidance material, the knowledge of the people, what to expect. Because there is 2 aspects. There is what is expecting the rule, and really, how can we monitor it? What should be the expected level of compliance? What does it mean in a DOA system to have an SMS system put in place? We are not anymore in a compliance, strict conformity aspect. We are in a system where we are managing the risk. So there will be no system saying that I will have no risk anymore. No, I will manage the risk. So there is a question of residual risk. And this new approach, this new concept needs to be managed. So the challenge, first one is there is unfortunately short timing for capitalization and return of experience. It's already too late influencing the IMC guidance material. It's already too late. They are in a late implementation, and the return of experience will not be there, at least not visible in the IMC guidance material. How can it be taken into account in the future training, communication workshop? It might be an opportunity, but here it's one of the first issues. The pilot project started a little bit late, and we didn't have adequate response nor engagement on the DOA team side. The readiness of the EASA policy and guidance for SMS assessment, which is also an issue. Here today, a lot of the people who didn't start discussion with the DO team leader, was of a big reason was, yes, but I do not have yet the MC guidance material. I do not have a point of reference, so I will not start the discussion with you. A lot of discussion were made on a push mode, so we were pushing the information, our system, our corporate system, safety management system, to the authority. But it was a good exchange, good listening, but with a relatively low feedback. We have also, it was a point mentioned this morning, some organizations will have to face several authorities for the kind of similar system, of safety management system, or to ensure that when we'll face different aviation authority, the oversight will be consistent, will be coherent. We have an example this morning about DOA and POA on the national, DOA on the EASA side and POA on the National Aviation Authority side. We will have the same with DOA, POA, and MOA. So all this kind of, how could we ensure that the expectation and the oversight will be consistent depending on the authority. And even between SMS, between EASA and other foreign authority who will have implemented this SMS in the regulation. The question of how do we integrate the various management systems, also linked to the SMS, but also with the independent system monitoring system, and the associated oversight. Are we sure that, does it mean that we'll have to run, if we have a kind of overall corporate system in place, recognized as being the means of compliance, does it mean that we'll have, for this same system, having an oversight for DOA, an oversight for POA, an oversight for MOA, whereas at the end it's the same process, same product, but maybe different actors, different concerns. And the question also, as we said, the safety management system, a lot of people have already, contributors have already corporate safety management system in place. What do we need to do beyond the continued airworthiness, DOA and our flight test? And the last challenge is when we are beginning the cascade to the supplier. At the DOA side, the requirement apply to the DOA holder, but we need to embed within the DOA all the interface with the supplier. So that's all for the summary of the ASD facilitation group. So a lot of elements, a lot of expectation. We're still working on it, and we will see for the support how we could collaborate further, maybe during the workshop or for the training session, or we could adjust and fit the objective. And now, if to conclude a little bit of a quick overview of the SMS implementation in Airbus. So first, we start with the purpose. We pioneer sustainable aerospace for a safe and united world. So it's part of our purpose, the safety. Then as part of the safety vision, again, it's pushed at company level. We constantly strive to announce safety together with our quest to reach zero accident. And for that, we'll have a nice video. If you could please launch the video to illustrate this promotion, this purpose and vision. So now if I know safety, what do you answer? First. I restart again. When I say safety, what do you answer? Better, thank you. Otherwise, I redo a second time the video. Okay, so now, as you see, the video also explains that the safety is something which has to be integrated, and it's also the safety to the product. So when you are speaking about the organization, it's the organization to regard the safety of the product. And in Airbus, we have a corporate SMS, which was put in place a long time ago already, focusing on the product, and now we reinforce this corporate safety to also add the additional brick, the additional layer about the corporate system, about policy, promotion, and so on, which was existing in place, but already, which will be reinforced by the regulation in place. So it will be, for SMS in our DOA, it will be not a DOA significant change for all the reasons I explained to you. In terms of gap analysis, it was a reinforcement of what exists already. We will use the SMS, the standard SM001 issue B as the means of compliance. This explains also maybe one of the reasons why during the pilot project we didn't have a lot of exchange because here, in fact, there was no exchange of the interpretation of AMC governance material because our strategy was to say in Airbus, we'll use the standard as the means of compliance. So it was more, the pilot project discussion was more a discussion, or we will have implemented concretely the requirement, the expectation from the industrial standard. And for the initial assessment, what we are targeting, because it's a question, okay, but which maturity level are we targeting for saying we have a system in place, we are targeting a maturity level 3. As per the appendix 2 of SMS maturity, it was one of the guidance also given this morning. And we consider that maturity level 3 is not the target per se, because here we have a continuous improvement, but it's a minimum level at which we consider that, yes, the system is in place and compliant to the rule and compliant to the intent. And that's all. Thank you for your attention. Now I pass the floor to Bragi. I hope that as a member of the ASD Facilitation Group, you agree with the first outcome.
Sorry, say that again?
Did you agree with the first outcome of the ASD Facilitation Group?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for a nice presentation. Absolutely thrilled to be here with you today and appreciate the invitation from EASA, from a small DOA, to be able to give a presentation to you all on the STC process at EASA. Thrilled to be here during this Christmas season as well. I know my daughter would have loved to be with me here. She's been singing Christmas songs since the beginning of October. That is absolutely driving me nuts. But so appreciate the feedback coming here and giving you EASA some feedback on the STC process as we see it. I did collect some feedback from DM Tech, which is I've been an observer on for the past year, and the SME DOA Alliance. This is not a coordinated opinion from either one of these groups. It's just feedback that I gathered from them and from our own experiences. To start off in general on certification and all the talks that we've had on SMS here today, it reminded me of a story that a good friend of mine, Patrick Safarian, an FA structures expert, had with Airbus, Dominic Marcoux on a wing-to-body joint, big design flaw. And Patrick asked him, so Dominic, what are you going to do to not repeat this mistake again? And I think Dominic gave the best answer possible. He said, we're not going to make this mistake again, but we're going to make fresh new ones. So it's a constant evolving process, the STC process, like any other process that we face in life. And the only three aspects we're actually promised in life is pain, uncertainty, and constant work. And without that, those three things, we can't have any progress. We must be able to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and continue on. So I will talk a little bit about the STC process, the workflow, the communication, the grading system, classification, some of the guidance material, and some of the improvements that we see. Now, the start of the process is quite straightforward. The EASA portal, you apply for an STC. The assignment of a PCM is relatively quick. But one of the problems that we've often seen is that you get a nominated PCM, but you don't get a nominated resource. And that happens that you don't get things happening in a timely manner. Of course, we as DOAs are on the impatient side of things, and EASA is more on the other side of the spectrum. And this is something that we have to coordinate on and get together, meet at a mutually agreed time point. SEPIAC use is very random. It seems to be that some PCMs like it and DOAs, but others don't. And even in SEPIAC, you see a lot of projects that are not closed in there and remain open, etc. So it really depends on the PCM and who's running the project at EASA, whether it's going to be used or not, or whether it's only through emails. Timelines are extremely important for us as DOAs. That is basically what we're selling. That was what we're selling to industry. And we have to have realistic timelines. If you're too pessimistic in your timelines, you won't get the business. So oftentimes you have to overpromise. And one of the things that we often find is that the timelines are rarely, if ever, discussed and committed to. So there is never any discussion on the actual timeline of when we think that we're going to be able to complete this project or this STC. Communication overall has been very good with the PCMs and experts. Very professional, feeling as everybody is doing their best. We've seen, lack of standardization between the experts, different views on demonstration to compliance, and how you demonstrate that compliance and show it. Most commonly, though, is that you feel that it's the lack of expert time. And oftentimes, when they come to the meetings, they haven't been able to prepare, read the documents thoroughly, and be ready to actively participate in the certification project. And again, the discussion again on the certification time plan as meetings progress, there is never any commitment to, when are we going to see an end to this. So the PCM is acting more as a coordinator rather than a certification manager of the experts. And there seems to be a lack of communication between the PCMs and experts is quite often evident. And we've seen cases where the PCM has accepted the certification plan, but then later on, as the experts really are kind of actively getting into the project, we see more certification items being added to it, often in the final stages. A few words about the grading system. It's not used by all participants by EASA in the projects. We've had cases where PCMs or experts have gotten offended if we do not agree with them and we go up the chain at EASA and say that we want another opinion on this. And we think it's unfair that you're getting penalized for something like that. The regulator is as fallible as we are. They're as human as we are. So, and I've just taken a couple of examples here below. We had one example where this is within our own DOA. The regulation had not been implemented of level of involvement and certification programs for major repairs in Iceland at the time. So, of course, we did not comply with it. And due to that, the PCM was penalizing us with a very bad grade. A lot of times you see in the comment system and the grading system is that it's not being used, it's not filled in. So if you don't get any comments out of these, like you say, there's 57 entries that were without any grades, it should be without. But only out of those 57, there were only 4 with comments. If you don't cut the comments, you don't get any feedback and you can't improve. A few words about classification, major, minor. That's, of course, still an active discussion point and can become a selling point also between the DOAs. Of course, guidance material will never be perfect, and there's always going to be some gray areas. And even some of the discussions that I've had with, within the DMTech group and others, they feel that especially certification memorandums, they should not even exist. So there's 2 very different viewpoints. Some find that certification memorandums are really good, additional guidance materials, frequently asked questions, etc. But on the other end of the spectrum, that the DOA should be allowed to just use the regulations as they are and the acceptable means of compliance and the official guidance material, but nothing additional to that. Because then you get into a case where the certification memorandum might be even invalidating something that could be interpreted in another way. And that especially holds true for classification. So when these things are distributed all around and things are not communicated well to industry and often, you result in this that this becomes an unlevel playing field, and where you have DOAs that are really strictly following the rules and regulations. They're classifying something as major while others are doing as a minor. Of course, EASA also does things well. We wouldn't be in this industry if it was not for them and the regulations and the approvals that we hold. I feel that you should be especially commended for the work that you did during COVID-19 and the special conditions and the guidance material. My view was that the EASA team was really leading the world with guidance material. Of course, it took time, we were impatient, we wanted to get the SDCs. The easy access regulations and the way that you publish those with the rule and guidance materials combined is really excellent. It really makes our work a whole lot easier. The EASA stuff, what I found whole across the board, easily approachable up to the highest levels for questions, quick phone calls or advice, which is something that really should be commended. Certification memoranda, my personal view is they're generally well written and studied, but there are opposing views on the certification memoranda, as I touched upon before, that some DOA holders don't like it. They want to be able to interpret the regulations and the guidance material on their own. Improvements. In the work that we've done on STC, we think that there would be a good improvement that the EASA experts should focus on the discussions with the DOA CVEs of understanding the requirements for the project, on how they should be showing compliance to it instead of the EASA expert actually acting as the CVEs. We think that builds trust and confidence in both ways. The everlasting problem of assigning names, and I know this happens in industry as well, and companies, you assign a project, a number of people to projects, you're assigning names, but you're not really assigning resources. So something must be done about that so you can more accurately predict the timeline of when you're going to be able to reach this SDC and finish it. Guidance material is oftentimes very hidden and put in places like the frequently asked questions. Our view is that frequently asked questions are not acceptable guidance materials. And we feel that the only method of communication should be either directly through some certification memorandums or direct bulletins, and there needs to be more of that feedback to the DOA holders, either through the DOA team leaders or through some other means. About 70% of the EASA DOA approval holders are small to medium-sized enterprises. And we do not actively participate in any industry steering groups like the DM Tech or the DOA working group, etc. I've been privileged to be an observer for the past year on it, but somehow we don't get our voice and our opinions into EASA because we don't have the same resources as the big DOAs have, etc. But we are forming this DOA Small and Medium Enterprise Alliance. We have about 15 DOAs that are actively participating. It's a small group as of is, and I would encourage you to get in touch with me so we can make this into a bigger and larger group that can benefit us all. Another thing is access to special conditions. Not all of them are easily accessible, and it can take time to get access to them or get feedback out of EASA, so it would be good to make sure that the special conditions are all easily accessible to us. One other item to touch upon is that we've seen cases where major updates to special conditions are not put out for public comments. One example of this is on non-rechargeable lithium batteries, where later on the special condition was edited, not put out for public comment, not in view of any of the DOAs. And then in the frequently asked questions, they were giving much more flexibility on the installation of items that contained non-rechargeable lithium batteries. So that's all I had for you. Thank you.
Thanks.
So good afternoon. My name is Goffin Bosch. I'm Chief Certification Engineer in the design organization of Lufthansa Technik. First of all, I'd like to thank EASA for giving us the opportunity to present here how we work as a design organization with EASA. Okay, this presentation was not only done by me, but also by my colleague Jörg Rover, so I need some notes to not forget the important stuff. So, a bit of background, as a DO, Lufthansa Technik is of course mainly an 145 organization, maintenance organization, and we are as well a design organization and production organization, which of course those three approvals help us a lot in keeping the aircraft flying. All in all, we have 22,000 people in our company. We are present worldwide, and of those 22,600 of those have some authorization in our design organization. They are not working full-time, so if you would count FTEs, it would be below 400. And one fun fact I have to note here that is we have already almost 50 years of DO. So beginning of next year, we have a small party where we celebrate it. We are mainly, of course, the main focus of our DO is historically supporting the airlines with minor changes and minor repairs, and we do more than 3,000 of them per year, mainly temporary repairs, but also permanent and minor changes. And we have 10 departments who do that. Basically, it's our system engineering departments and our colleagues in the maintenance shops that also have some time to spend to develop and think of repair procedures to improve our processes. And then we have two major departments. Our major departments take care of our VIP completions and commercial modifications. So we do about 20 plus STCs a year. This includes not only the initial STCs, but also the post-STC major changes. And well, typically we do VIP completion, lots of cabin modifications for the airlines. We have done a lot of cabin of antenna installations for the past years, and we do some cockpit stuff as well. On the DOA side, we have regular coordination with EASA. Of course, in our projects, we have the normal project work with the PCM and the expert. But I would like to start here with the regular meetings. We have a biannual management meeting where our management, our design organization management meets with PCM, DOA team leader, their management, the STC coordinator of EASA is always involved, where we discuss just the things, the topics which are currently important to us. We look back on past projects and we look forward what is coming next to us, and both parties involve the experts that are needed for those topics. So from time to time we have experts there as well. Then we have a weekly call with our focal PCM. We are in the great position to have one dedicated PCM for us. It's highly appreciated. And while we communicate with him, of course, within the normal certification projects, we also have one set telcon with him each week, which we sometimes use and sometimes we don't. Sometimes they just take like 10 minutes, and sometimes they take maybe an hour, and we involve other experts as well. And at the end of the day, of course, we have DOA oversight in forms of audits. We have 3 audits per year, and they usually take 2 or more days. So then I would like to say something about our DOA team leader. We have very good oversight. We have a very good connection with him. Meetings are very well prepared. We have a good cooperation. Just last week we had an audit. Of course, we not always agree on certain topics, but in general we have a very open and friendly discussion. The audits are supported by EASA experts, and there we are also very happy with the quality and the time and the expertise that they provide during those audits. Just recently, we had an extension of our DOA privileges, which again, we can also just say, well, we had great timely support. We had good discussions before that. It was well prepared. So all the, let's say, plannable items currently are working very well. What is not so good currently, at least, is accessibility to our DOA team leader, and this is, and we know that is due to his workload, and it's a common issue with other DOAs we know, and we really hope that our DOA team leader gets some new colleagues as soon as possible. So we currently struggle with getting him on the phone and get timely responses to our questions. We understand the situation, but as we are asked for feedback, to give feedback here, there you have it. Then some words about our focal PCM. Again, we are in the happy position to have such a PCM where he knows all our projects, he knows our priorities. They are not working full-time for us, so it's not that we have that many projects and questions that we can fill his day, his day with our topics. But it helps us really to coordinate. And he, to some extent, he coordinates not only within the project, but also in terms of DOA questions. As I said, we speak with the PCM anyway within our projects, but with the weekly telecon, we have some kind of escalation path. If in some of the projects we have issues, questions, or we can't reach an expert, for example. And then this is very helpful because he can coordinate, maybe he gets the attention that we do not get by the experts. And again, we are really happy to have a dedicated PCM for us. And we're even more happy that our PCM has a deputy as well. Yeah, then some general observations, and I have to point out that Lufthansa is the founding member of the IAMA, the Independent Aircraft Modifier Alliance, and some of the observations we all share with our other members. The first item is, and Bragi has already spoken about it, the flow of information. It's we have recognized that it's moving towards FAQs, and while we are fine with that, we didn't know that this was the case until beginning of this year. Nobody told us. We are always looking in the guidance material, in the cert memos, and what is, let's say, officially released. So just as a hint, FAQs are containing valuable information. The other thing is that the introduction of regulatory changes has been better supported in the past, I guess, and I think this is something that has to do with EASA resources. But let's take this event as an example. In the past, these events took 2 days, and I think that was really valuable. And I think we would like to see that again have more time, to have more dedicated discussions. We would appreciate that. And the other thing is, well, SMS was also one of the topics today. SMS, the rule was released, I think, March this year. And when it was released, I believe the guidance was announced for summer. And now we are nine months after the release of the rules and 3 months before the DOAs have to implement it. So it would be nice to have it more timely. But again, this is maybe also shared by EASA. And again, yes, our EASA resources is at least this year, and we have learned that it will be next year an issue, a topic, where we have to somehow live with and deal with. Then I would like to speak briefly about the DOA dashboard data, because it is the baseline for LOI, so it becomes relevant to us. So it's not only good information or good feedback on how well we did, but it has an impact on the project. So via the LOI process, as you know. So the dashboard data is available each year or once a year, and we have had experts come up to us saying, well, we know that in the last project you weren't that great as you should be. And due to that finding, which is of course valid, the LOI changed, which is okay again, but this live data, we didn't have it until recently at least. So there is a mismatch between the data the DOAs have and base the LOI on, and the data maybe some expert has to define the LOI in a specific project. So then another thing we notice is that the DOA performance just takes a project, and it doesn't account for if it was a large project, what was very simple post-STC major change. So maybe it would be good to have there some ratio. On the other hand, we usually do better on post-STC changes, so it probably works to our good. And the last item, and I think Bragi mentioned it as well, the transparency required for the project, and let's go into the performance evaluation. So one of the items is, and we learned just recently during our management meeting how the system works. So I can only say that, well, the information is available if you would like it. I think the DOA team leaders can distribute it. And we received it, so some of those items I put on here, we raised during the management meeting 2 weeks ago and were answered, but this presentation was then already done, so we couldn't make any changes. So we learned, or at least we have with EASA an agreement that we can get intermediate DOA performances during the year, not only once per year. And we found that this is also explained in one of the FAQs, which is online. So we put also the number on, so if you want to have a look. And it gives us the opportunity to ask after a project or on a regular basis to our DOA team leader, just give us the performance data for the last project. This data is not public in our company, so it's only shared with very few people, because of course you can see which EASA panel in which project gave which rating, and of course you could, if you wanted to, put names on it, both on the EASA side and on LHT side, but that's not how it's intended, and that's not how we use it. We use it solely for improving our processes to see what went well and what didn't. And this option to have this information within the year and not only the general dashboard performance is very valuable for our continued improvement process within our DOA. Again, it's a manual process, so we have to call the DOA team leader, and it's provided to us in a format where we basically have to transfer it again into another to work with it. So it would be nice to have it in a different form than we get it today. But that's yeah, just a wish. We can live, or we can, or you can work with it as you get it. But again, I want to stress this again. We really used it to improve our processes. And at the end, the goal is, of course, to have a good rating on the dashboard because it has an input and an influence on LOI. And as much as we like to interact with the EASA experts, a good performance leads to a low level of involvement, and we do not want to bother the experts more and use more of their time than we need to. And finally, yeah, again, I already spoke about it. It's the dashboard data on project level. We learned that we can get it. We learned when we can get it, and this is again something Bragi also mentioned. It's the time when the DOA team leader has access to those performance rating of a project. Is apparently when it is closed in ZPIAC, which requires again that ZPIAC is used as it is intended, and that those projects are closed shortly after the STC, because then it's easier for us to assess the performance, because otherwise our colleagues are in the next project again, and nobody knows why and how a certain performance rating landed there. So this would be something we would like to give to EASA to use ZPIAC as it is initially intended, at least as we thought it would be intended, just to support us or the DOAs in general to use the DOA feedback data and get a timely feedback from the experts after completion of the project. And this ends my presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everybody for your presentations. I mean, I would like to start by saying, yes, we really mean thank you, because at EASA we want to improve, and we can only improve if we have the right feedback. And this is why we decided to give industry the floor today, so that we can get back and get that feedback. And okay, some of it was not always a surprise. Some of it we were aware of, and you'll hear in the last session some of the things that we are trying to do to improve for the future. Some of the things were maybe less clear to us, and we need to take away the presentations that you've made today and analyze them. And if we have any questions, for sure, on our side, we will come back to you and ask for clarification, but it's really appreciated on that point. So now if we go to the questions that we're receiving through Slido. Okay, so what are EASA comments to feedback presented by Mr. Balderson on STC processes? I think that's quite a wide open, and if we have to go back to the presentation and put the points up, we'll be here for a while. So I don't intend to address it, but it's well received here on EASA, and we will go through it. There are some points on there we may have answers to later on, or some, if there's more individual points, then maybe we address those through the questions. So I'll go to the next question. And then the next one is, yes, a thank you. So a thank you to Bragi for expressing the issues. So this is clearly appreciated, and it's got their 44 thumbs up, that question, so I think we can say that the opinions as expressed there are fully supported by the remainder of the industry. A significant part of the supply chain is within the US. What about EASA coordination with the FAA, as it is understood that the FAA is not going to regulate ISMS? Okay, so if we go to Juan over there, if you can answer, take that point.
Hello, everyone. My name is Juan Anton. I'm the DOA section manager, also responsible for policy issues, and I was dealing with ISMS for the last 4 years. So, yes, we coordinated the development of the ISMS rule with the FAA. The FAA participated in all the meetings of the European Strategic Coordination Platform. Now, it was very clear that we have excluded US organizations from the requirements. Okay? As long as they are covered by bilateral so far, I mean, US airlines are not affected, but DOAs in the US, if they are covered by a bilateral agreement right now, they are not affected by the rule. It may be that in the future they are affected if the bilaterals are changed. But right now they are not affected. Now, it's true that there are suppliers in the US, they are not directly affected, but they will be affected indirectly because of the requirements imposed on the European organizations. So yes, there is an indirect effect on them. The FAA knows about that, but there is no direct effect on US organizations, unless they are directly approved by EASA, like it's the case, for example, for Part 145 maintenance organizations.
Thanks, Juan. The next question, ISMS, for smaller DOAs, what elements of proportionality are foreseen? Maybe Juan again.
Okay, so this is part of the AMC which is being developed. There were certain exclusions dealing with organizations dealing only with ELA2 aircraft and some smaller aircraft. But if you have a small organization, this is going to be part of the AMC material. And the AMC material is now under development. It should be out next year in 2023. And this should be covered there. Of course, it will not be the same as for larger organizations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then the next point, so another thank you to Bragi, a great summary of the issues, which don't normally have the capacity to contribute to rulemaking, so yes, it's another recognition there. Then the next point, can you share any practical tips to reduce administrative burden introduced by SMS other than using existing corporate level SMS? We really, I don't know, Wang, can you speak to that one at all, or is that...
Okay, regarding SMS, I mean, if you already have a corporate system, you can try to use as much as possible, as this was the case of Airbus, as they explained. For the other organizations, and this is something we have to start discussing with them, as soon as we have the AMC material available, at least the more critical elements that should be out by the end of the year or beginning of next year, then we can start focusing on how we interpret the rule, discuss that with the organizations, see what they are doing, and see how much can be created. But until we have those discussions, it's difficult, and until we have the AMC out, it's difficult to give a firm position on that.
Okay. And Stefan, I was going to say on your side anything?
Yes, if I may. The way I see it, the way we see it also internally, and as you mentioned this morning, SMS in itself, looking for the safety, the quest for safety is not a novelty. The purpose of a certification, the purpose of a design organization is to improve the safety. So if one thing you should look at it when you want to address the SMS, do not restart by a blank sheet of paper. start already by reinforcing what you have already for the continued airworthiness, for the training, for the nomination of people. You have already key actors already engaged in the design and production who have this specific role. It's a question of culture. If you want to first focus on the safety, focus first on the safety culture, which is a little bit difficult to measure, but the safety promotion is really the first element, and after that, looking for reinforcing what is done already, because the foundation is already there. We do not start from zero.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Next one says, does EASA have any foreseen any lack of resources in the near future to support ongoing approval applications? If yes, could you please provide the plans for mitigation? We won't address this one now. The next topic after the coffee break is on resources, so we will leave the resources topic. Otherwise, we will sort of steal that part of the presentation. Industry WTT, would it be possible to reactivate the DOA workshop setup, e.g. for airlines, for STC holders, like in the past, very good past experiences? So this is good feedback. Just to say, at the end of this workshop today, there will be a survey that goes out for your feedback, and you will have a chance to comment on this kind of aspect, including what sort of format we go forward next year for this conference. So we're open to receive this sort of feedback and then consider what we do next year. What is your view on the LOI, how it is working, and do you see difference between DOA holders? What about, so if we start on the stage here, maybe we can get feedback of the panelists in terms of quick feedback on how they see LOI working. I mean, if we start with Bragi, do you have specific feedback on how LOI is working with regard to Aptos?
We don't, I think we just started our first STC about 3 months back, where we had LOI for the first time, because it was late implementation of the regulation in Iceland, so okay. We weren't practicing it before that. Okay,
so it's still getting used to it. Ludovic? Okay. Okay, Stefan, I don't know anything.
Here on the LOI, again, it was a good intent, and after that, by experience, it still need to be improved and look to the various experience we have. There is sometimes not always a good and a proper implementation of the system. So it's we need to work together to be sure that yes, the full benefit of LOI principle is on the table, and one of the objectives of LOI was also to adjust also the focus of the EASA resource on what's matter, and it's important that we keep this focus, and we should really work and implement the LOI so that the EASA is involved on where the risk is, and we could further extend this case here today. Sometimes we see still people still working as they were used to.
Yes.
So there is still this transition period. It's also a change of the culture, a change of the way of working. It takes time, but we have differences, sometimes locally. Yes. And it's not only a change of culture within the EASA system, also a change of culture within the DOA holder organization.
Okay, okay. No, thanks. And Rob, from Lufthansa perspective on LOI?
Well, it's not working bad. What we see in the project is that getting the experts' acceptance statement of the LOI, of the proposed LOI, that is sometimes hard to get, and we have to actively ask for it, while we kind of expect that we would get it without asking again and again. So that is something where we would like to see, in that case, a more proactive way of working from EASA side. Yeah. And it takes a lot of communication. Okay. Between us and the EASA expert.
I fully confirm this point. One of the big differences we see, or big improvement we see on this LOI, is the formal acceptance or formal feedback in the initial delivery of certification program. Okay. Which is also a change in the LOI, whereas at the end it was more on review of a compliance documentation. Now we ask an advance acceptance of this certification program, not having additional comment when the people start to re-question the certification program when they start to receive a certification document. So it's also a change of mindset, the question of building trust, confidence in the system. But here it's on our side, in Airbus, it's one of the big area where we have some axis of improvement.
Okay.
With EASA.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think LOI from an EASA perspective is relatively new in, and of course, like anything that's new, there will be ways that it can be improved going forward. So we have to look and try and ensure, for sure we have to try and be consistent across the different DOA holders. It's sometimes difficult to achieve, but it's certainly something we need to do and see how we can improve the way it's implemented. I think with this sort of thing going forward, we at some point we need to look, take stock, take some feedback and see how we can improve, or is it meeting the intended purpose, and how do we go forward? Can we improve how it is dealt? Standardization is always an issue in anything the regulator does. We have to try and be standardized across a number of different stakeholders. So yes, we will try and be looking at those for sure. Okay, the next question. If I don't receive a response from a DOA team leader, how can I escalate it? Obviously, if you don't receive it within a certain time frame, then you can only contact somebody else, but and normally the line manager. But yes, we would rather see that they do respond, and yeah, again, we need to look at how we perform in terms of our responses as well, even on this. Next question. LOI, high DOA performance rating leads to less or no expert involvement, ending up in a rating of unknown after some time. How will EASA change that? I'm not sure we have necessarily anybody to speak to that today. Again, it's something, as I say, we need to look at areas that we need to improve. And this is probably one of them, to see if we need to change something in that area. So the next question. Currently, the requirements for cybersecurity in aircraft depend on category level. Will Part IS contradict the current applicability, non-applicability?
Well, I suppose when you say the current requirements for cybersecurity on aircraft, you refer to the product requirements in the certification specifications. The Part IS is not a product requirement, it's an organization requirement. So it's a requirement on how you manage the risk within the organizations. Now, that relates to the personnel, to the tools, to the systems you use, but also to the products. And yes, there could be certain interfaces, but in principle, they are different in scope, the rules. This is an organizational rule, Part IS. The other ones are the certification requirements for the product. And we are not talking about certification requirements for product within Part IS.
Okay, thanks, Juan. And then the next question. Currently, the requirements for, I know that was can EASA clarify some contradictory points? In particular, we heard earlier, SMS is significant change to DOH. Airbus presentation indicates it is not.
Okay, yeah, so. Okay, this is a particular case of Airbus. This is based on how they have the management system in the organization, what they have in the corporate system, what they can already take credit for, or what they think it can be created for. And the discussions with EASA have led to that conclusion, that in this particular case, it's not a significant change. But every organization is different, and the DOA team leader of every organization will analyze that with you, and then it will be decided whether it is a significant change or not, based on what you have already in the organization.
Okay, and then maybe we've got time for coming to a close. So has the EASA an action plan to monitor and ensure timely support for all projects, especially for new, smaller DOAs? I mean, I think that's linked to the resource aspect, and we'll talk about that after the break. So just to finish, I see there's a question at the bottom. Do the questions not answered during this session, will they be answered and published by EASA after the conference as it was in the past? I'm afraid to say no, we are not taking that commitment this time. Previous experience has found that it's a massive and absolutely a massive commitment to do that, which uses many, many man-hours chasing around questions and answers. So I would say if you feel that you have a particularly important question, please submit it to us directly after the workshop, after this conference, and then we will answer it that way. But we won't be going through all of the questions submitted through Slido that were not answered. Okay, so that's the end of this session. We're now going to go to a coffee break, and after the break we have Preparing for the Future. So there we will give you some ideas on how we're trying to improve and some other aspects. I'd like to thank again all of the speakers for your time and for your feedback. Thank you very much. Yeah. And if you just wait here, I just have a small gift.